The intergalactic docking station, known simply as Nexus 7, was a miracle of human and alien engineering, a floating metropolis tethered to no planet, orbiting a dying star at the edge of explored space. The station was a melting pot of species: chitinous Cliktars, gaseous Valurians, and the ever-curious Sveltans who seemed to be everywhere at once. Yet, despite the diversity, humans stood out like anomalies, their unpredictable nature earning them equal parts admiration and distrust. The air was thick with tension as Captain Jackson Via, a seasoned human diplomat-turned-enforcer, stepped into the dimly lit market district. His boots clanked against the metal flooring, the echoes swallowed by the cacophony of haggling traders, alien chatter, and the faint hum of energy cores. He wasn't here for leisure. Nexus 7's peace was on the verge of collapse. A Clictar merchant had been murdered in cold blood, and the evidence pointed to humans. Jackson's comlink buzzed in his ear. "Captain, we've got a situation," said Arlen, his Svelton partner. Arlen's voice, soft and melodic, betrayed his worry. "A Valurian diplomat is demanding immediate answers. They're claiming the humans are destabilizing the station." "Tell them I'll handle it," Jackson replied, weaving through the crowd. He could feel the eyes on him, Clictar guards clicking their mandibles, Valurians hovering just out of reach, their amorphous forms shifting with unease. The humans had always been the wildcard species, their adaptability and recklessness making them both allies and threats. Jackson's destination was a seedy cantina on the station's lower levels, a known human hangout. The place reeked of spilled drinks and bad decisions. As he stepped through the door, a hush fell over the crowd. Dozens of eyes turned toward him, some wary, others defiant. Among them was Riker, a scruffy scavenger known for stirring trouble. "You've got a lot of nerve showing up here, Via," Riker sneered, leaning back in his chair. His companions, a mix of humans and a few daring aliens, watched with tense anticipation. "Cut the theatrics," Jackson said, his voice low but commanding. "A Clictar merchant was killed last night. Evidence points to one of us. I need answers." Riker smirked, but there was a flicker of fear in his eyes. "And what makes you think it was one of us? You know how they look at us, Jax. They'd pin their own crimes on us if it meant getting rid of us." Before Jackson could respond, the cantina's doors burst open, and a squad of Clictar enforcers stormed in, their weapons humming with energy. The lead enforcer, a towering figure with serrated claws, pointed at Jackson. "You humans think you're untouchable. Not anymore." Chaos erupted. Riker's group scattered as the Clictar opened fire, their weapons scorching the air. Jackson dove behind a table, drawing his plasma pistol. "Stand down," he shouted, but his voice was drowned out by the roar of battle. The cantina became a war zone. Bottles shattered, tables were overturned, and the air filled with the acrid smell of burning metal. Jackson returned fire, aiming to disable rather than kill, but the Clictar were relentless. One of them lunged at him, claws outstretched, but Jackson rolled out of the way just in time. "Arlen, I need backup," he barked into his comlink. "I'm on my way," Arlen replied, but the connection crackled with interference. Nexus 7 systems were known to glitch in high-stress situations, and this was no exception. Jackson's cover was quickly being reduced to scrap. He spotted Riker trying to escape through a back door and made a split-second decision. "Riker, stop," he yelled, but the scavenger ignored him. With no time to lose, Jackson fired a warning shot that narrowly missed Riker's head. The scavenger froze, hands raised. All right, don't shoot," the Clictar leader roared, advancing on Jackson. "This ends now, human." But before the enforcer could strike, the cantina's ceiling collapsed with a deafening crash. Arlen descended from above, his lithe form glowing with Svelton energy. He unleashed a wave of kinetic force that sent the Clictar flying. "About time," Jackson muttered, pulling Riker to his feet. "We need to move," Arlen said, his usually calm demeanor replaced with urgency. "There's more at play here than a simple murder." As the trio fled the wreckage, Jackson couldn't shake the feeling that Nexus 7 was teetering on the edge of something far worse than a diplomatic incident. The station had always been a powder keg, but now, someone, or something, had lit the fuse. The once vibrant corridors of Nexus 7 had turned into a gauntlet of hostility. As Jackson, Arlen, and Riker sprinted through the station's lower levels, every corner seemed alive with danger. The click tower weren't backing down. More enforcers flooded into the district, their clicking mandibles echoing like a hive preparing for war. Tensions that had been simmering for years between humans and aliens were now on the verge of boiling over, and the trio found themselves right in the middle of it. "You've really outdone yourself this time, Riker," Jackson growled as they ducked into a dimly lit maintenance shaft to catch their breath. "What aren't you telling me? I swear I didn't kill anyone." Riker shot back, panting. "But I might have seen something." "Spit it out," Arlen demanded, his glowing eyes narrowing as his energy aura flickered, a sign of his agitation. Riker hesitated, his gaze darting to the narrow opening where the sound of click-tower enforcers grew louder. "Look, there's this deal. Some humans have been trading with a faction of click-tower dissidents. They hate the click-tower leadership as much as we do." Jackson grabbed Riker by the collar, slamming him against the wall. "You mean to tell me you were smuggling weapons into click-tower territory?" "It wasn't me," Riker protested, squirming in Jackson's grip. "I just heard whispers, all right? But whoever's behind it is playing both sides. They're framing humans for the murder to spark a war. Who's pulling the strings?" Arlen asked, his voice calm but laced with menace. "I don't know," Riker insisted. "But I know where they are meeting next, a cargo bay near the station's reactor core. If we can get there, maybe we can stop this before it's too late." Jackson released Riker with a shove. "If you're lying to me." "I'm not," Riker interrupted. "I don't want to die any more than you do." Arlen glanced at Jackson. "We don't have a choice. If he's right, this could explain the click-tower aggression. But heading to the reactor core is a gamble. It's one of the most heavily monitored areas on the station." "Then we don't waste time," Jackson said, checking his plasma pistol. "Let's move." The reactor core was a labyrinth of twisting corridors, pulsating with the rhythmic hum of Nexus 7's lifeblood. The trio moved cautiously, avoiding security drones and bypassing surveillance systems with Arlen's advanced tech. The tension was palpable, every step felt like it could set off a chain reaction of catastrophe. As they approached the cargo bay, they heard voices, hushed but urgent. Jackson signaled for silence, and they crept closer, peering through a gap in the stacked crates. The scene before them was a web of treachery. A group of humans, armed to the teeth, stood across from a click-tower dissident leader flanked by heavily armed guards. Between them was a crate filled with advanced plasma rifles, tech far beyond what either side should have possessed. The click-tower dissident leader, a towering figure with jet-black carapace and piercing red eyes, spoke in clipped tones. "This alliance serves both our interests," the click-tower said. "With the weapons you've provided, we can overthrow the ruling council. In return, we'll ensure humanity has dominion over Nexus 7 once the dust settles." Jackson's stomach turned. This wasn't just a murder cover-up, this was a conspiracy to ignite a full-scale war. "We need to stop this now," he whispered to Arlen and Riker. Before they could act, a new player entered the scene. A Valurian diplomat emerged from the shadows, their gaseous form solidifying into a humanoid shape. "Fascinating," the Valurian said, their voice resonating like a chorus. "Humans and click-tower conspiring together. How deliciously ironic." The click-tower dissident leader stiffened. "You weren't invited to this meeting." "Perhaps not," the Valurian replied, their tone mocking. "But I couldn't resist. You see, the murder of that merchant? That was my doing. It was all too easy to pit humans and click-tower against each other." Jackson felt his blood run cold. The Valurian was orchestrating the entire conflict, manipulating both sides for their own agenda. "You're insane," one of the humans spat. "If this station falls apart, we all die." The Valurian laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. "That's the beauty of chaos. From the ashes of this station, a new order will rise. One where Valurians reign supreme." The room erupted into chaos. The click-tower dissidents turned their weapons on the Valurian, who dissolved into a mist, reforming behind them to strike. The humans, realizing they'd been double-crossed, opened fire indiscriminately. "We've got to stop this," Jackson shouted, breaking cover. He fired at the weapons crate, aiming to destroy the illicit cargo before it could be used. The plasma blast hit its mark, igniting the crate in a fiery explosion. The shockwave knocked everyone off their feet, sending shards of metal and debris flying. Arlen unleashed a surge of energy, creating a barrier to shield them. This entire sector is going to collapse if we don't end this now. The Clicktar dissident leader, enraged, charged at Jackson with claws bared. Jackson barely managed to roll out of the way, retaliating with a precise shot that hit the Clicktar in the leg, disabling them. The Valurian, now fully engaged in the chaos, turned their attention to the trio. Ah, the meddling heroes. How quaint. Before the Valurian could strike, Riker, of all people, grabbed a discarded plasma rifle and fired. The beam sliced through the Valurian's form, dispersing them into harmless vapor. For a moment, there was silence, broken only by Riker's shaky laugh. "Did I just save the day?" "Don't get cocky," Jackson muttered, hauling him to his feet. "We're not out of this yet." The sound of approaching Clicktar enforcers snapped them back to reality. "Time to go," Arlen urged, pulling Jackson and Riker toward an emergency exit. As they fled the carnage, Jackson couldn't help but feel the weight of what they'd uncovered. Nexus 7 was more fragile than he'd ever realized, and the forces at play were far more dangerous. The Clicktar dissidents, the Valurian manipulations, this was just the beginning. And the station, hanging precariously in the void, might not survive the storm that was coming. The emergency exit led to a maintenance tunnel, a dark, damp corridor filled with the acrid stench of leaking coolant and the hum of ancient machinery. Jackson's heart pounded as he led the way, adrenaline still surging from the chaos they had barely escaped. Riker followed close behind, clutching the plasma rifle like his life depended on it. Arlen brought up the rear, his glowing energy field flickering faintly as he strained to keep his defenses intact. "Where the hell are we going now?" Riker asked, his voice trembling. "The Clicktar are everywhere. That explosion? They're gonna think we started a war." "They won't just think it," Jackson replied grimly. "If we don't find a way to expose what's really going on, the entire station will burn. Humans, Clicktar, everyone." "Easier said than done," Arlen added, scanning the tunnel with glowing eyes. "The Valurian might be gone for now, but that chaos is spreading. The Clicktar leadership will see this as an excuse to wipe humanity off Nexus 7. Jackson stopped abruptly, turning to face the others. "We need proof. Something undeniable that shows the Valurians' involvement, and the dissidents' betrayal. And where exactly do you suggest we get that?" Riker shot back, panic creeping into his tone. "The Clicktar aren't gonna let us waltz into their command center." "We don't need to," Arlen said, his voice calm but urgent. "The station's central data core. It records everything, meetings, transactions, communications. If the Valurian manipulated the Clicktar and humans, there'll be evidence." Jackson nodded, his resolve hardening. "The data core it is. But it's not gonna be easy. Security there is tighter than anywhere else on the station." "Fantastic," Riker muttered. Because this day wasn't already suicidal enough. The journey to the central data core was nothing short of harrowing. Nexus 7's underbelly, usually a maze of forgotten maintenance shafts and smuggler routes, had turned into a war zone. Clicktar enforcers patrolled the tunnels in force, their sharp clicks and guttural growls echoing ominously. Jackson led the way with practiced stealth, his movements fluid and deliberate. Arlen used his energy manipulation to disable security cameras and reroute patrols, while Riker, despite his constant grumbling, proved surprisingly adept at hacking old terminal systems to unlock doors and create diversions. As they neared the data core, the tension reached a breaking point. They crouched behind a rusted cargo crate, watching as a squad of Clicktar guards blocked the corridor ahead. Their armor gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lights, and their weapons hummed with lethal energy. "Too many to take head-on," Jackson whispered, his mind racing. "Arlen, can you?" Before he could finish, a loud explosion reverberated through the station. The lights flickered, and the ground shook violently, sending sparks raining from exposed wires above. "What the hell was that?" Riker hissed, clutching his rifle tightly. "Doesn't matter," Jackson said. It's our distraction. Move. Under the cover of chaos, they slipped past the Clicktar squad, navigating the final stretch to the data core. The massive door to the core chamber loomed ahead, sealed with layers of biometric security and advanced encryption. Arlen stepped forward, his hands glowing as he interfaced with the control panel. This is gonna take a minute. We don't have a minute, Jackson said, glancing back down the corridor. The Clicktar would recover from the explosion quickly, and it wouldn't take them long to realize where the intruders were headed. Then cover me, Arlen snapped, his focus unwavering as streams of alien code danced across the screen. Jackson and Riker took up defensive positions, their weapons trained on the corridor. The seconds stretched into an eternity, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Finally, with a triumphant hum, the doors slid open, revealing the data core, a sprawling chamber filled with towering servers, their surfaces glowing with pulsating blue light. We're in, Arlen said, stepping inside. But this place will be crawling with Clicktar any second. Then let's get what we came for and get out, Jackson replied, motioning for Riker to follow. Inside the data core, Arlen worked furiously, his fingers flying over the holographic interface as he accessed the station's records. Jackson and Riker stood guard, their eyes darting between the entrance and the labyrinth of glowing servers. Got it, Arlen announced after what felt like an eternity. Records of the Valurians' communications with the Clicktar dissidents. Proof of their plan to incite war. Perfect, Jackson said. Now let's. The chamber suddenly filled with the sharp clicks of Clicktar enforcers. They poured through the entrance, weapons drawn, their mandibles twitching with aggression. Move! Jackson shouted, firing the first shot. The room erupted into chaos. Plasma bolts flew in every direction, illuminating the dark chamber in bursts of searing light. Jackson and Riker took cover behind a server, returning fire as the Clicktar advanced. Arlen, clutching the data drive, used his energy manipulation to create shields, deflecting incoming shots. We can't hold them off forever, he shouted. We don't have to, Jackson replied, his mind racing. Riker, where's the nearest escape route? Riker ducked as a plasma bolt whizzed past his head. There's a maintenance shaft on the far side of the room. If we can reach it, we might have a chance. Then let's go, Jackson said, covering their retreat with a barrage of suppressing fire. The trio made a break for it, dodging and weaving through the chaos. Arlen's energy shields flickered under the relentless assault, but they held just long enough for them to reach the maintenance shaft. Jackson slid the hatch open, motioning for the others to go first. Move. I'll cover you. Riker and Arlen climbed into the shaft, the latter using his energy to seal the hatch behind them once Jackson scrambled inside. The sounds of the Clicktar pursuit grew distant as they crawled through the narrow passage, their breathing heavy and labored. When they finally emerged into a quiet, deserted storage room, the gravity of their situation hit them. They had the evidence, but they were now fugitives on a station teetering on the brink of destruction. What now? Riker asked, his voice hoarse. Jackson looked at the data drive in Arlen's hand, determination burning in his eyes. Now, we show the truth to the entire station. We expose the Valurian, the dissidents, and the Clicktar leadership for what they've done. And if they don't believe us? Riker asked. They'll believe us, Jackson said. Because they won't have a choice. As the station trembled under the weight of growing conflict, the trio prepared for the next phase of their desperate mission, a fight not just for their own survival, but for the fragile peace of Nexus 7. The trio's temporary sanctuary was far from safe. The hum of Nexus 7's chaos reverberated through the walls. Jackson paced the dimly lit storage room, his jaw clenched. Riker sat cross-legged on the floor, fidgeting with his plasma rifle, while Arlen inspected the glowing data drive that held their only hope. We have the proof, Arlen began, his tone cautious. But distributing it won't be easy. The station's comms network is monitored by Clicktar Command. Then we need to override it, Jackson said firmly. If we can hijack the central broadcast system, we can show the entire station what's really going on. Riker groaned, rubbing his temples. Oh, sure, let's just walk right into the lion's den and take over the station's broadcast center. Easy peasy. Jackson ignored him. Arlen, is it possible? The alien's glowing eyes narrowed as he thought. It's risky. The click tower will have it heavily guarded, especially with the Valurian pulling strings. But it's doable. Then that's our move, Jackson decided. We hit the broadcast center, expose the truth, and let the station's people, humans, click tower, everyone, see what the Valurian are trying to do. And if they don't care? Riker asked, his voice edged with cynicism. What if they just start shooting each other instead? They'll care, Jackson said, his voice resolute. Because if they don't, this station will tear itself apart. The journey to the broadcast center was a gauntlet of danger. Nexus 7 was in full lockdown, with click tower patrols flooding the corridors and every checkpoint bristling with firepower. The trio relied on a combination of stealth, Arlen's energy manipulation, and Riker's hacking skills to evade detection. But the closer they got to their destination, the harder it became to avoid confrontation. In one particularly tense moment, they found themselves cornered in a maintenance tunnel. Click tower enforcers blocked both exits, their insectoid forms silhouetted against the flickering lights. We're trapped, Riker hissed, gripping his rifle. Not yet, Jackson replied, his mind racing. Arlen, can you create a diversion? The alien nodded, his hands glowing as he sent a surge of energy into the nearest control panel. Sparks flew, and the tunnel lights exploded in a shower of glass, plunging the area into darkness. Go! Jackson shouted, leading the charge as the click tower scrambled to regain their bearings. The trio fought their way through, plasma bolts lighting up the darkness. Jackson moved like a predator, his shots precise and deadly. Riker provided cover fire, while Arlen used his energy shields to protect them from incoming attacks. When they finally reached the broadcast center, they were bruised, battered, and dangerously low on ammunition. The broadcast center was a sprawling complex of glowing terminals, massive holoscreens, and a towering central antenna that pulsed with energy. Click tower guards were stationed at every entrance, their movements sharp and disciplined. We can't take them all, Riker whispered, peering around the corner. We don't need to, Jackson replied. We just need to reach the main console. And how exactly do you plan to do that? Riker asked. Like this, Arlen said, stepping forward. With a wave of his hand, he sent a surge of energy into the nearest power conduit. The lights flickered, and alarms blared as the click tower scrambled to contain what they thought was a system's malfunction. Now! Jackson shouted, sprinting towards the central console. The trio moved like a well-oiled machine. Jackson and Riker provided cover fire, taking out click tower guards with ruthless efficiency. Arlen used his powers to manipulate the station's systems, opening doors and disabling security measures. When they reached the central console, Arlen immediately got to work, interfacing with the system. Streams of alien code flowed across the screen as he uploaded the data drive. Almost there, Arlen said, his voice tight with concentration. Hurry up, Riker muttered, firing another shot as click tower reinforcements closed in. We're running out of time. Done, Arlen announced, stepping back as the data uploaded to the station's broadcast system. The holoscreens throughout Nexus 7 flickered to life, displaying a series of damning recordings. The Valurians' meetings with the click tower dissidents, their plans to incite war, and their ultimate goal of destabilizing the station for their own gain, all of it was laid bare for everyone to see. The reaction was immediate. In the click tower quarters, leaders who had been hesitant to believe the humans' claims were now confronted with undeniable proof. On the human side, factions that had been on the brink of rebellion saw the real enemy for the first time. But not everyone was ready to listen. The Valurian, realizing their plan had been exposed, launched a desperate counterattack. Their forces descended on the broadcast center, determined to silence Jackson and his team. The final battle was chaos incarnate. Plasma bolts and energy blasts filled the air as the trio fought to hold their ground. Jackson's movements were a blur of precision and fury, while Riker fired with a desperation born of survival. Arlen pushed his energy manipulation to its limits, creating barriers and unleashing devastating attacks. Despite their efforts, the Valurians' forces were overwhelming. Just as it seemed the trio would be overrun, the Clicktar leaders arrived with their own troops. United by the truth, the Clicktar and humans turned their weapons on the Valurian, driving them back. When the dust settled, Nexus 7 was forever changed. The Valurian had been defeated, their plans exposed and dismantled. The station's inhabitants, human and Clicktar alike, were forced to confront their shared vulnerabilities and begin the slow, painful process of rebuilding trust. As Jackson, Riker, and Arlen stood amidst the ruins of the broadcast center, a Clicktar leader approached them. "You risked everything," the alien said, its voice a mix of clicks and guttural tones, "for a peace that may not last." Jackson nodded, exhaustion etched into his features. "Because it's worth fighting for." The Clicktar inclined its head, a gesture of respect. "Perhaps humans are not as fragile as we thought." As the leader walked away, Jackson turned to his companions. "We did it. For now," Riker said, slumping against a console. "Let's just hope this peace sticks." Arlen, his energy dim but steady, managed a faint smile. "If it doesn't, at least we'll be here to fight for it." And as the trio looked out at the fractured but hopeful station, they knew that hanging out with the humans and aliens would never be the same again.